There is a silent kind of loneliness that has nothing to do with being physically alone. It's the feeling of standing in a crowded room, nodding along, yet knowing you exist on a separate frequency. It is the psychology of always feeling out of place. A sense that no matter where you go or who you're with, something invisible keeps you at a distance from everyone else. You smile, you participate, but deep down, there's a quiet awareness that you don't quite belong. And if you've ever felt this way, you already know it's not something you can easily explain. It's not about being shy or antisocial. It's about feeling like you're watching the world through glass, seeing all the rules and rhythms everyone else follows naturally, but never quite syncing up yourself. This feeling is not a flaw. It's often the result of a mind wired differently, a sensitivity turned up higher than most, or a way of seeing the world that refuses to accept things at surface level. And while it can be a heavy burden, it also carries with it a rare and powerful gift. So what makes some people feel perpetually out of place? And why does this experience shape them in ways most others will never understand? The person who always feels out of place is often, first and foremost, an observer. They notice things, not just the obvious things, but the subtle contradictions, the unspoken tensions, the patterns beneath the surface that others overlook. They see the difference between what people say and what they mean. They catch the slight shift in tone, the forced smile, the performative kindness. And this creates distance, because when you can see through the surface of social interactions, it becomes harder to participate in them without feeling like you're pretending. The world starts to feel like a stage, and everyone else seems to have memorized their lines while you're still reading the script for the first time. This heightened awareness doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from a brain that is constantly scanning, analyzing, trying to make sense of a world that often doesn't make sense. And the more you see, the more isolated you feel. Because most people aren't looking that deeply. They're comfortable with the surface. But you can't stop peeling back the layers even when it hurts. This wiring often begins in childhood. The child who feels out of place is usually the one whose inner world doesn't match the outer environment. Maybe they were highly sensitive in a family that valued toughness. Maybe they were naturally introspective in a culture that rewarded loudness and certainty. The mismatch creates a fundamental sense of being different, and that sense never fully goes away. It's not about trauma in the traditional sense, though trauma can certainly amplify it. It's about temperament. Some children are born with a nervous system that picks up more information, feels things more intensely, and processes the world with more complexity. When that child grows up in an environment that doesn't understand or value those traits, they learn early on that something about them doesn't fit. And once that belief takes root, it becomes a lens through which they view every interaction for the rest of their lives. They start to see themselves as fundamentally other, even when they're surrounded by people who care about them. But it's not just sensitivity, it's also depth. The person who always feels out of place tends to think in ways that go far beyond the practical or the immediate. They don't just think about what is happening, they think about why it's happening, what it means, and what it says about the nature of existence itself. This is more than regular overthinking. Regular overthinkers get stuck in loops about specific worries or decisions. But the person who feels out of place engages in existential thinking. They question the point of things. They wonder why people follow certain rules, why society values what it values, why we're all pretending that any of this makes sense. And these aren't casual thoughts. These are deep, persistent questions that most people never spend time considering because they're too busy living their lives. But for the person who feels out of place, these questions are impossible to ignore. They look at a crowded restaurant and wonder why everyone is going through the motions. They sit in a meeting at work and think about the absurdity of the entire structure. They watch people celebrate milestones and feel disconnected, not because they're cynical, but because they can't turn off the part of their brain that sees the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is always more complicated, more uncertain, and more lonely than the simple narratives everyone else seems to accept. This depth makes it nearly impossible to enjoy things without dissecting them. A beautiful sunset isn't just beautiful. It's beautiful, yes, but it's also temporary. And that temporariness makes them think about impermanence, which makes them think about death, which makes them think about meaning. A conversation with a friend isn't just pleasant. It's pleasant, but also filled with subtext, with things left unsaid, with the performance of connection rather than true understanding. They can't just be in the moment because their mind is always 3 steps ahead or 3 layers deeper, pulling apart the experience even as it's happening. And this creates a painful irony. They crave simplicity, but their own mind won't allow it. They want to feel at ease, but ease requires a kind of mental stillness that their brain refuses to provide. What makes this even more complicated is that these people don't just think deeply, they also feel deeply. Their emotions are not simple or straightforward. They don't just feel sad or happy. They feel sadness mixed with nostalgia, happiness tinged with fear of loss, anger layered with disappointment and confusion. They experience emotions in high definition, with all the nuance and complexity that most people only experience in rare, extreme moments. And because they feel so much, they also absorb the emotions of others. They walk into a room and immediately sense the mood, the tension, the unspoken frustrations. They can feel when someone is pretending to be okay. They pick up on the emotional undercurrents that others miss. And while this makes them deeply empathetic, it also makes them exhausted, because carrying your own emotional complexity is hard enough. Carrying everyone else's on top of it becomes unbearable. They feel too much, all the time, and there's no off switch. So they learn to protect themselves by withdrawing, by creating distance, by building walls that keep the emotional flood at bay. But those walls also keep out connection, which is the very thing they're desperately searching for. And so they wear a mask, not because they're dishonest, but because survival requires it. They learn to hide the depth, to soften the intensity, to pretend they're simpler than they are. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They engage in small talk they find meaningless. They mirror the energy of the room even when it feels foreign to them. And they do this because they've learned that showing their true selves makes people uncomfortable. People don't know what to do with someone who thinks too much, feels too much, questions too much. So they hide. They become experts at blending in, at giving people just enough to feel like they know them while keeping the real depths carefully concealed. But this creates another layer of loneliness, because even when they're surrounded by people, even when they're liked and appreciated, they know it's the mask that's being liked, not the person underneath. And that knowledge is crushing. The silence they offer in groups is often mistaken for disinterest or aloofness, when in reality it's the opposite. It's not that they have nothing to say, it's that they have too much to say, and nowhere near enough safety to say it. This is why relationships are so complicated for them. On the surface, they seem like they should be great at connection. After all, they're thoughtful, empathetic, and capable of profound emotional depth. But in practice, relationships are a minefield. because they can't do surface-level connection. They can't do casual friendships that stay light and easy. They need depth. They need conversations that go beyond the weather and work and weekend plans. They need to know what you think about, what scares you, what keeps you up at night. They want to dive below the small talk and into the real substance of who you are. And this intensity scares people. Most people aren't used to being seen that closely, that quickly. Most people need time to build trust before they go deep. But the person who feels out of place doesn't have patience for the slow build. They're starving for real connection, and they want it now. So they either dive in too fast and overwhelm people, or they hold back entirely and stay lonely. There's no middle ground. And when they do find someone they trust, they don't do anything halfway. They don't casually share. They open the floodgates. They reveal everything all at once, with a kind of desperate relief that finally someone might understand. They become intensely loyal, deeply invested, and completely vulnerable. And this makes betrayal hit them harder than it hits most people, because they didn't just share surface-level information. They shared their entire inner world. And when that trust is broken, it doesn't just hurt. It confirms their deepest fear, which is that they were right all along to feel out of place, that no one will ever truly understand them, that they're destined to be alone. So they retreat even further, build the walls even higher, and become even more selective about who they let in. The cycle repeats. What's interesting is that the pain of feeling out of place often pushes people toward meaning. They can't just coast through life doing what they're supposed to do without asking why. They need their lives to matter. They need to feel like they're contributing something real, something that aligns with their values, something that makes the struggle of existence feel worthwhile. This is why they often gravitate toward creative work, or social causes, or philosophy, or anything that allows them to explore the deeper questions they can't stop thinking about. They need an outlet for the complexity inside them. They need a way to take all that depth and turn it into something tangible, something that can be shared with the world. Because if they can't express it, it just sits inside them, growing heavier and heavier until it feels like it might crush them. So they write, they create, they teach, they help, they build. Not because they're trying to be special, but because they're trying to survive. They're trying to find a way to make peace with a mind that won't stop questioning and a heart that won't stop feeling. But even with all that depth and all that searching, there's a part of them that just wants to be normal. They look at people who seem content with simple lives and they feel envious. They watch people enjoy surface-level pleasures without overthinking them, and they wonder what that must be like. They see people who fit in effortlessly, who don't question their place in the world, who just exist without all the noise, and they wish desperately that they could be like that, but they can't. And deep down, they know they can't, because even if they tried to turn off the depth, even if they tried to stop questioning and just accept things as they are, their brain wouldn't let them. It's not a choice. It's who they are. And so, they're stuck in this strange place of wanting to belong, while simultaneously knowing that true belonging would require them to betray themselves. They can fit in by pretending to be someone else, or they can be themselves and stay on the outside. There's no option where they get both, and here's where the shift happens. Because as painful as this feeling is, it's also the source of something valuable. The person who feels out of place is often the person who sees what others miss. They're the ones who notice when systems are broken, when rules don't make sense, when the emperor has no clothes. They're the ones who question assumptions, who refuse to accept things just because that's how they've always been done, And while this makes them uncomfortable to be around sometimes, it also makes them necessary, because progress doesn't come from people who are comfortable with the status quo. It comes from people who can't stop seeing what's wrong, what could be better, what should change. The person who feels out of place is often the person who is meant to disrupt, to challenge, to push boundaries. Their inability to accept the surface is not a weakness, it's a strength. It's the thing that allows them to see possibilities that others can't even imagine. But recognizing that strength doesn't make the loneliness go away. It doesn't suddenly make them feel like they belong. What it does do, though, is offer a different way of thinking about the experience. Instead of seeing themselves as broken or defective, they can start to see themselves as simply different. Not better, not worse, just wired in a way that doesn't align with the majority. And that difference comes with trade-offs. Yes, they feel more lonely, but they also see more clearly. Yes, they struggle with connection, but when they do connect, it's deeper and more meaningful than most people ever experience. Yes, they carry more emotional weight, but they also have access to a richness of inner life that most people will never know. The question isn't how to stop feeling out of place. The question is how to make peace with it. And making peace with it starts with acceptance. Not acceptance in the sense of giving up, but acceptance in the sense of stopping the fight against their own nature. They spend so much energy trying to be different, trying to fit in, trying to quiet the noise in their heads. But what if they stopped? What if they accepted that this is just how their brain works, and instead of seeing it as a problem to solve, they saw it as a reality to work with? This doesn't mean embracing isolation. It means embracing the fact that they will always see the world a little differently, and that's okay. It means finding people who appreciate that difference, instead of trying to convince people who don't. It means building a life that honors their need for depth instead of forcing themselves into shallow spaces that will never feel right. One of the hardest lessons for these people to learn is that not every thought needs to be thought all the way through. Not every question needs an answer. Not every feeling needs to be analyzed. Sometimes the healthiest thing they can do is stop thinking and just feel. To sit with the sunset without dissecting it. To enjoy a conversation without searching for subtext. To be present in the moment without pulling it apart. This is incredibly difficult for them because their default mode is analysis, but it's also essential, because if they never learn to quiet the mind, they'll spend their entire lives trapped in their own heads, unable to actually experience the world they're so desperate to understand. Peace doesn't come from figuring everything out. It comes from accepting that some things can't be figured out, and that's okay. It comes from learning to tolerate the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the not knowing. It comes from trusting that they don't need all the answers in order to live a meaningful life. And meaning is ultimately what they're searching for. They need to feel like their life matters, like their depth serves a purpose, like all the pain of feeling out of place is leading somewhere. And the truth is, it can, but only if they stop hiding it, only if they take the risk of expressing the complexity inside them, of sharing the insights they see, of using their unique perspective to create something that matters. This doesn't mean they need to become famous or change the world in some grand way. It means finding small ways to ground their inner world in the outer one. It means writing, or teaching, or helping, or creating art, or having conversations that matter. It means finding people who can handle their depth and building relationships with those people, even if it's only a few. It means accepting that they will never have a huge circle of friends, but the friends they do have will be real. It means letting go of the idea that they need to be understood by everyone and focusing instead on being understood by the right people. Because here's the truth. The world needs people who feel out of place. It needs people who question, who see beneath the surface, who refuse to accept things as they are. It needs people who feel deeply, who think complexly, who carry the weight of existence in a way that most people never will. These are the people who write the books that change lives, who create the art that makes people feel less alone, who ask the questions that push society forward. These are the people who see what is, what could have been, and what should be. And while that vision comes with pain, it also comes with purpose. The key is learning to carry the pain without letting it crush you, and to use the depth without letting it isolate you. So if you've always felt out of place, if you've spent your whole life feeling like you're on the outside looking in, know this: you're not broken, you're not defective, you're not too much or too intense or too complicated. You're just wired differently. And that wiring comes with challenges, yes, but it also comes with gifts. The depth you carry is not a flaw. It's your own kind of light. It's the thing that allows you to see beauty and pain and meaning in places where others see nothing at all. And the world needs that light, even if it doesn't always know how to appreciate it. So don't shrink your thoughts to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Don't dull your edges to make other people comfortable. Find the places and the people where your depth is valued, where your questions are welcomed, where your intensity is met with understanding instead of fear. They're out there. And when you find them, you'll realize that feeling out of place wasn't a sign that something was wrong with you. It was a sign that you were looking in the wrong places. The hardest part of all of this is learning to be patient with yourself, to accept that you will have days where the loneliness feels unbearable, where the weight of your own mind feels too heavy to carry. And on those days, it's okay to rest. It's okay to stop searching for meaning and just exist. It's okay to let yourself feel out of place without trying to fix it, because the feeling will pass. It always does. And on the other side of it, you'll find moments of connection, moments of clarity, moments where everything you've been thinking and feeling suddenly makes sense. Those moments are worth the wait, they're worth the struggle, and they're proof that you're not as alone as you sometimes feel. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you've always felt out of place, you're not imagining it, you're not overreacting. You're experiencing something real, something that comes from the way your brain is wired and the way you see the world. And while that experience can be painful, it's also part of what makes you who you are. It's part of what allows you to think deeply, feel intensely, and see clearly. And those are not small things, those are powerful things. So instead of fighting against your own nature, learn to work with it. Find the people who get it. Build a life that honors your need for depth. And most importantly, stop waiting for the world to understand you. Understand yourself, accept yourself, and trust that the right people will find you when you stop pretending to be someone you're not. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever felt this way, or if there's something I missed that you think is important. And if you found value in this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.